Hello again. We're back for another sermon this week. This week I am going to start a short series of Dr. Seuss books. So many of you who are going to be hearing this sermon today probably don't know that I've already done a sermon on this, but it's been about 5 years ago since I did a sermon on Dr. Seuss's The Sneetches. But I am kind of doing what Stephanie's doing with her sermon series, where she is revisiting things that she has said in previous sermons over the last couple semesters. And so I thought I might do the same thing. And so today I'm going to read you a Dr. Seuss book. And some of you may have heard of The Sneetches. My son happens to have this book. And so I am going to read it. I'm sorry if you can't see the words. It's going to be backwards. But it's okay. You can at least see the pictures, right? So let's try this. The Sneetches. Now, the star-belly Sneetches had bellies with stars. The plain-belly Sneetches had none upon theirs. Those stars weren't so big. They were really so small you might think such a thing wouldn't matter at all. But because they had stars, all the star-belly Sneetches would brag, "We're the best kind of Sneetch on the beaches." With their snoots in the air, they would sniff and they'd snort. "We'll have nothing to do with the plain-belly sort." And whenever they met some when they were out walking, they'd hike right on past them without even talking. When the star-belly children went out to play ball, could a plain-belly get in the game? Not at all. You only could play if your belly had stars, and the plain-belly children had none upon theirs. When the star-belly Sneetches had Frankfurter roasts or picnics or parties or marshmallow toasts, they never invited the plain-belly Sneetches. They left them out cold in the dark of the beaches. They kept them away, never let them come near, and that's how they treated them, year after year. Then one day, it seems, while the plain-belly Sneetches were moping and doping along on the beaches, just sitting there wishing their bellies had stars, a stranger zipped up in the strangest of cars. "My friends," he announced in a voice clear and keen, "my name is Sylvester McMonkey McBean, and I've heard of your troubles. I've heard you're unhappy, but I can fix that. I'm the fix-it-up chappie. I've come here to help you. I have what you need, and my prices are low, and I work at great speed, and my work is 100% guaranteed." Then quickly, Sylvester McMonkey McBean put together a very peculiar machine, and he said, "You want stars like a star-belly Sneetch? My friends, you can have them for $3 each. Just pay me your money and hop right aboard." So they clambered inside. Then the big machine roared, and it clonked, and it bonked, and it jerked, and it burked, and it bopped them about. But the thing really worked. When the plain-belly Sneetches popped out, they had stars. They actually did. They had stars upon theirs. Then they yelled at the ones who had stars at the start, "We're exactly like you. You can't tell us apart. We're all just the same now, you snooty old smarties. And now we can go to your Frankfurter parties." "Good grief," groaned the ones who had stars at the first. "We're still the best Sneetches, and they are the worst. But now how in the world will we know," they all frowned, "if which kind is what, or the other way around?" Then up came McBean with a very sly wink, and he said, "Things are not quite as bad as you think. So you don't know who's who. That's perfectly true. But come with me, friends. Do you know what I'll do? I'll make you, again, the best Sneetches on beaches, and all it will cost you is $10 eaches." "Belly stars are no longer in style," said McBean. "What you need is a trip through my star-off machine. This wondrous contraption will take off your stars so you won't look like Sneetches who have them on theirs." And that handy machine, working very precisely, removed all the stars from their tummies quite nicely. Then, with their snoots in the air, they paraded about, and they opened their beaks, and they let out a shout. We know who is who. Now there isn't a doubt. The best kind of Sneetches are Sneetches without. Then, of course, those with stars all got frightfully mad. To be wearing a star now was frightfully bad. And, of course, old Sylvester McMonkey McBean, he invited them into his star-off machine. Then, of course, from then on, as you probably guess, things really got into a horrible mess. All the rest of that day on those wild screaming beaches, the fix-it-up chappie kept fixing up Sneetches. Off again, on again, in again, out again. Through the machines they raced around and about again, changing their stars every minute or two. They kept paying money, they kept running through until neither the plane nor the starbellies knew whether this one was that one, or that one was this one, or which one was what one, or what one was who. Then when every last cent of their money was spent, the fix-it-up chappie packed up and he went. And he laughed as he drove in his car up the beach. They never will learn. No, you can't teach a Sneetch. But McBean was quite wrong. I'm quite happy to say that the Sneetches got really quite smart on that day. The day they decided that Sneetches are Sneetches, and no kind of Sneetch is the best on the beaches. That day, all the Sneetches forgot about stars and whether they had one or not upon theirs. The end. So, my hope for this world is that there will be a day when hate speech and discrimination, prejudice is ancient history, kind of like at the end of the story of the Sneetches. And maybe one day we can learn to live together, acknowledging our differences, but not using our differences to separate us from one another. Human beings should be able to treat one another with respect and dignity, yet it hasn't happened yet. The story of the Sneetches teaches children and adults something important that we all need to be reminded of. Human beings are all created as equals. We may have some outward differences, but really we're all part of God's creative work. In the past, I've had the unique opportunity to teach a general education course called GE 112. In the past, it was FYS 112. In GE 112, I was told to broadly teach ethics while using a contemporary lens, so students had a way to connect ethical theory with the real world that they were living in. So when trying to figure out the title of my course at the very beginning, the first time that I taught the class, I decided to go with The Ethics of Equality. I chose this topic because, first and foremost, I'm a peacemaker. So if you know the Enneagram, I'm a solid 9. So anytime there's conflict, I want to get out of that situation. And so it felt right to talk to students about how to be respectful of one another despite our differences. But secondly, I'm a lover of social justice efforts. So teaching ethics and how ethics relate to issues of equality in our modern world was sort of my happy place. When I first began teaching GE 112, I didn't make a distinction between equality and equity. For the purpose of my class, equality meant ensuring that individuals or groups are treated fairly in order to promote an equal society. In other words, everyone should have an equal opportunity regardless of their race, their gender, their disability, their religion, age, or sexual orientation. Equality isn't about being politically correct or telling people what they can and can't say. It's about treating others as you would want to be treated. The students who took my class learned what it meant for us to treat others equitably. So in other words, I taught them that to treat everyone with respect and to give each other what they needed in order to be successful citizens in our world. So from a Christian standpoint, we could say that treating others equally or equitably is similar in nature to the golden rule. We all know the golden rule, right? Do to others or do unto others as you would have them do unto you, right? Well, when Paul wrote to the church in Galatia, he said this in chapter 5, "For you are called to freedom, brothers and sisters." Only do not use your freedom as an opportunity for self-indulgence, but through love become slaves to one another. For the whole law is summed up in a single commandment: you shall love your neighbor as yourself. If, however, you bite and devour one another, take care that you are not consumed by one another. Use your freedom as an opportunity to love one another. For the whole law is summed up in a single commandment: you shall love your neighbor as yourself. You know what's interesting about this commandment to love our neighbors? Well, every major world religion has almost this exact same commandment or verse that is very, very similar. The High Holy Scriptures say, "And if your eyes turn toward justice, choose for your neighbor that which you would choose for yourself." The Buddhist faith says, "Hurt not others in ways that you yourself would find hurtful." Followers of Confucian read this from their Holy Scripture when asked, "Is there one word that can serve as a principle of conduct for life?" Confucius replies, "It is the word shu, meaning reciprocity. Do not impose on others what you yourself do not desire." The Hindu faith says, "This is the sum of duty. Do not do to others what would cause pain if done to you." The Quran says, "None of you truly believes until he wishes for his brother what he wishes for himself." Even those who are not religious can probably agree that the golden rule is something worth following. Right now, I'm under the impression that our world needs a little extra love and affection. Well, as long as it's done in a way where we can keep our social distancing. If we can't learn to love one another during this difficult time, what will happen to our human race? Better yet, if we can't learn to love all people during this difficult time, what will happen to us as a human race? Several years ago, a writer and storyteller by the name of Melvin Bray came to Mars Hill University and did a storytelling workshop, and also spoke in Crossroads. Melvin invited us to rewrite the story of Mars Hill University, and he posed the following two questions to us. What will you do to help rewrite the story of Mars Hill? And number two, will you be a person who respects and upholds the dignity of your peers? So what would happen if we took these two questions and changed them a little bit? So let's change it to say, what will you do to help rewrite the story of your community? What will you do to help rewrite the story of our world during this confusing time? Are there things you can do today that will bring light and love to someone who is living either in your own home or your community or in your world? Can you be creative during this time at home to bring love to someone else? Maybe you can write letters for those you know who are at home alone. Call a friend who you know is struggling. Make cards for those living in a local nursing home or respite care center. And those are only a few ideas that you can do. I know a lot of you who are watching this today are a lot more creative than I am. And so I want to invite you to find something that you can do to bring love and care for somebody who is in desperate need of it. I want to inspire you to take control of what's going on in your personal life and make a change where you are currently. You have the power to change the world, but you have to take the initiative here. Take the step of faith. Step out on a limb and all of those other quirky cliches that challenge us to take action. We've been conditioned to think of each other as us and them instead of thinking about ourselves as humans. To our deepest core, we are all human. Forget about the differences we all have and realize I'm a human, you're a human. If we can do something good for one another despite our differences, we might all find ourselves in a little bit brighter place. Know that you are loved and there's nothing that you can do about it. Amen.